Well, then, we're back. Botch Wrestling Podcast Season 2, Episode 5. After this crazy week of life. Very crazy. Very wild. Gonna get more wild. Starting off with a hot note, though. Hulk Hogan at the RNC.
Yeah, brother.
Also, did you know Donald Trump's his hero?
I did.
I
Or
didn't,
I did
but I just found out.
I did now. Yes, I saw earlier that he's that's his hero.
So do you think that goes along with eating your vitamins and saying your prayers? Like, is
It
that
probably goes more along with,
is that the third trifecta?
n- needles in the ass with illegal substances. Probably
Yeah,
goes more with
yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Oh, with the 22-inch pythons.
yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so we made
Or
it
how
one.
they or how he got him.
Yeah, so we made it 1 minute and 18 seconds into this episode before it gets taken down on YouTube. So that's great. That's a
That's
new record for us. But anyways,
it's a it's a
um,
it's one of those weeks.
decent week of wrestling, I would say. Raw was good. NXT was good. Getting prepared, getting 1 week closer to the
Yeah,
PLE. See what I did there? It's not pay per view, Dan.
I know. I know.
It's not pay per view. It's a PLE in Cleveland, which is just ugh. But yeah. I mean, are we getting excited? Like, it doesn't feel. Do you think like SummerSlam used to bring some excitement, right? Like
Yeah, it was
like it's one of the big
yeah.
ones, right? Like,
Yep.
do you think it's kind of like because of everything else going on e- external to wrestling, it kind of feels like it's almost dead a bit. No pun intended. I didn't want to hit the target on that one, but
Yes, now we're really getting taken down. Um, I think, I mean, I agree with what you're saying that, like, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series has always been a little bit more excitement than the rest of them, right?
right,
I don't know why, but I agree with you. It's not as it's like it's still a big deal because it's SummerSlam, but it's
yeah,
just not as like the anticipation isn't as great. I think that's my opinion. That's because week to week has been so great.
that's true.
So
That's a
it's
good point.
like, we've been getting some PLE quality storyline week to week. And, we haven't been getting as much like, I guess the biggest difference, and maybe we can talk about this in a little bit more depth later, there's been a little bit less wrestling recently in WWE's product,
Yeah.
or at least in Raw and SmackDown, especially Raw. There's been a little less wrestling and a little more everything else,
Yep.
but that has been really good and compelling. So it to me it hasn't been noticed, but SummerSlam will be all wrestling for the most part, and it should be really good wrestling. So we kind of get that now instead, and that's maybe the anticipation. Um,
Yeah.
there was a statistic out there. I forget who posted it, but just comparing minutes of wrestling between Raw, um, NXT, Dynamite, and TNA, and Raw was like something like 32 minutes, I want to say, of like actual wrestling on a 3-hour show, which is kind of crazy at the same time, but I don't know. Still good show. So what's it matter? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like they're headed in a different direction, right? With WWE, like it seems like they're like hitting heavily, like you said, on storylines, and it kind of makes sense if they're going to Netflix, right? Because
Right.
they're gonna have to catch the broadcasters by storylines. Like, yeah, there's gonna be a ton of people that turn in because it's WWE, right? And they want to see the wrestling, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like for instance, like I don't know, we could start talking about Raw to tie this in if you want, but the whole storyline between Rhea, Liv, and Dom, like some of those scenes that we've seen over the past couple of weeks have brought it back to like the rated R superstar days with the bed in with the bed in the center of the ring, or some of the things that like Liv has been given the green light on for a promo to be actually able to say that she's a screamer like out of nowhere. Like it's like what like the direction that they're heading, right? It's like when Triple H said on McAfee show that they're going to be uncensored. I don't know if we all thought they would start to like amp it up to get there, but it definitely feels like we're heading that way, right? Like it definitely
Yeah.
feels like they're going to try and hit some new plateau of like something WWE hasn't been before. Like they had the Attitude Era, they had the PG era, which would kind of be what we're in now, right? Ish or type of the PG era. Not not as bad as the PG era. PG era has been in the like when it first came around, right? Like they couldn't do anything in like that transition of getting out of the Attitude Era to okay, let's calm down now. We're kind of like a family friendly show. Like
Right.
you know what I mean? Like a lot changed. Like a lot changed. So they've been that for so long. I think that's what's like catching everybody by surprise too, is that fact that they're able to just I don't know, like even with NXT, right? Like I was thinking about it before, and apologies to get off tangent here, but it feels like NXT is WWE's version of the Forbidden Door. Because look at everybody that's come through,
Yeah.
and you have M- M- Moose from TNA who hasn't worked with WWE, but all he's doing is singing the praise of every WWE personnel that he's been able to get in touch with. So he hasn't transitioned over or anything, but he's saying it's been great. It's been a lot better than the AEW trial we had. Like they're just more open to things. They're more open to put the wrestlers in a better spotlight that helps their character and their career. And it's like this dude hasn't even been involved yet, and he's already like talking like this is the best place ever. And then Joe Hendry came out and said after he wins the TNA title, he wants to challenge Cena. So like
Yeah.
like, and then Jordan Grace, like it's a wild time, right? Like it is a very like very wild time on like what's going on. Yeah, it's I'm sure it's gonna be good. I mean, we can go over the card, but just looking at it real quick, you have three possible matches that you can end the card with, and I think everybody would be okay with each of them. But just to backtrack a little bit here, uh, so real quick, I was just reading this as it came out 3 days ago. I forgot to forward this on, but it looks like WWE announces NXT No Mercy on Sunday, September 1st, and NXT Halloween Havoc on Sunday, October 27th. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Um,
Halloween Havoc they've done before with NXT, but not No Mercy, not yet at least.
yeah, so that's cool that we're getting dates for these. Um, and Halloween Havoc will take place in Denver. Uh, No Mercy and NXT Halloween Havoc will take place Sunday, September 1st at Ball Arena in Denver, and Sunday, October 27th at the Giant Center in Hershey, PA. That's crazy that they're bringing that show to Hershey, PA. That's not a bad drive. Well, it's kind of a far drive, but it's definitely worth it. Um, and then Raw would take place the following. Yeah, Raw. For some reason, they love doing Raw in Hershey, PA. But that's not a bad drive. Maybe we should look into that now that I'm bringing this up. Huh, look at that. Um. Anyways, but yeah, it is. That's cool. I'm glad they announced that. I like how the WWE keeps like the NXT stuff kind of like off the radar, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, we're doing these two pay-per-views here. Come, come watch." Right? Like they kind of keep it hidden in an age of where the internet discloses everything. Um,
Right.
and they do a pretty damn good job at it. But yeah, so let me bring this up real quick. Did you watch Raw on Monday, sir?
Most of it, yeah.
What were your thoughts besides it? Besides what we've talked about, like storyline wise, like did it still hit what it was doing for you? Was the lack thereof wrestling kind of dull? What were your thoughts
No,
there?
I thought it was good. I don't have a problem necessarily with the lack of wrestling on a good show. You know, I had a problem with it years ago when the non-wrestling segments were terrible, but they're not terrible anymore. They're really good. And they enhance the eventual matches that are coming. So that's all you can really ask for. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
And they've got a lot that they've got out there, and they've got multiple tracks that they're building. I mean, they could quickly, you know, quickly pivot if they ever needed to.
yeah, right.
So
Like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely um yeah, it's definitely been structurally sound, right? Like, um, because me, it feels like ever since Cody supposedly finished his story, even though we're back against the Bloodline 2.0, it feels like they don't have all of their eggs into one basket, right?
right.
Like he's like 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 we said, the whole Rhea and Liv and Dom thing, Drew and Punk, Sheamus is back. Uh, Damien versus Gunther, Damien versus Seth. Like you have all these matches could be seen as main event at any other company. And then
Hmm.
you now have AJ Styles going back to Japan and doing matches this past weekend. Like
Right.
it's a wild time, right? Like it's um yeah, wild time. So yeah, I thought it was good. Did you like Rhea's promo?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought she brought it in the promo. She got back to being that like sociopath self of where she's gonna try to end her career. Like, and that's cool. Like, that's probably gonna be a banger of a match because Liv has definitely improved since being back on what is she calling it? Her revenge tour, right? That's what she's saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
she looks to be like 100% healthy and ready to go, which is cool. Um, so yeah, yeah, but just to recap Raw real quick. So it started off with the Brea promo, which is very good. Uh, and then we had uh, there was also in no particular order we had Sheamus defeating Bronson Reed, which I can't lie, how hard these guys hit each other. It's exciting
Yeah.
to watch these two go, right? Like even for it being at the start of the card, the middle of the card, whatever. Like these two guys do not hold back. They just go to leave bruises wherever they could. Then we had Sonya Deville, which good to see her back and finally healthy, versus defeating Zelina Vega. Just good to have her back. She's a good character. She's decent in the ring, and I think it just adds more spark to that already stacked women's division. Damian Priest versus Braun Strowman, which wild that Damien got Braun up for the South of Heaven chokeslam. Um, Prior to this, Gunther and Priest had a good promo. Did you hear the things Gunther had to say about Priest?
That one I missed.
That was so G- Gunther, as it's pronounced by the best wrestling uh, staff that there is, Gunther said he would prove that Priest is just a piece of street trash, just like his parents thought of him.
Okay.
So like Gunther went like straight back to his roots, if you know what I mean. And yeah, it was wild to see Gunther's character go that deep. Like to like obviously we've seen him like just chop the crap out of people in the ring, right? To the point they're doing 360s. Like just hammer him. But like they hear him get on a bike and like just really like pick somebody apart, like talking about their parents, their family, like calling them a piece. Like I don't know, for some reason it felt weird he was doing it. Maybe because it's the first time it feels like he's done it while he's been in WWE. Because his whole thing before was nobody can keep up with him, right? Like that's his whole claim to fame is that he's the general and nobody can keep up with him within the squared circle. Like that's what he said for years now. But like for him to actually just like spew this at Priest, I was like, ooh, this feels awkward. But then you had Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, boring, defeating Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, extra burn, boring. They had the Pierce extending Drew McIntyre's suspension after teasing a match with Punk at SummerSlam. The real question is, Dan, do you think we get that Punk Drew match at SummerSlam?
I don't know. I mean,
Or is
I
Drew going
think
to
it's
be a respectful individual and adhere to his suspension rules?
I don't know. There's some stuff on Twitter with Punk working out, like again, and he was in the ring with some NXT, like I think we might, right? There's only what, 4 matches announced right now?
Uh, Let me check my non-digital tablet like you have, because I don't have the money that you have, Dan. Um, so right now, yeah. So it's Damien versus Gunther, Bailey versus Naya, Liv versus Rhea, and Cody versus Solo. Right?
Right. So we don't, there's gonna be, I think there are gonna be more. I don't think SummerSlam's gonna be a 5 match card. Like I think there's a few more matches coming. I think it's possible it could be those two.
That would be insane. Um, yeah, just thinking about it, like that would be insane if this was a 5 match card, like the biggest event,
Yeah.
or one of the big four. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. Jesus. Um, it's only five. Like, do you think that hurts the legacy of SummerSlam if they eventually go to that? Like, I get what they're doing the other months throughout the year, right? But if they take, well, obviously they can't do that for WrestleMania. But like, if they start doing the other big ones as like a 5 to 6 card, or yeah, 5 to 6 match type cards, do you think that that kind of takes away from like the history of these pay-per-views? Because I used to be
Well,
amped to watch this when I like growing up. Like
yeah. I
SummerSlam was
mean,
it.
I mean, that's not going to happen because next year they go to a 2 night format, so it's going to be a bigger show.
Good point. Yes, that's correct. Good point. Yeah, because that's in Minnesota, was it? Right?
I think next
Or is
year,
that
and
the
so
Indianapolis year? Yeah, it's well, one of them. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. I forgot about that.
yeah, it's Minneapolis, but for the first one at least, I think Indy is getting one in the future too.
Yeah,
Um,
they're getting all three, right?
I think so. Um, so I I think that this is just foreshadowing that they're going to do this with the four major ones. You're going to see a 2 night Rumble, a 2 night WrestleMania, a 2 night SummerSlam, and a 2 night Survivor Series. I think, and they're probably going to structure them to be two small to medium sized cards so that they don't keep you for 6 7 hours.
Right.
They're going to keep you for 3.5 to 4 each night.
So yeah,
Um,
okay.
and it works out with, I think, the evolution they continue to build with everything they're doing, and then also like continuing to feature the women as well. This makes it easier to feature the women and the men separately and give them proper main events if they deserve it, right? Like, we didn't see that necessarily at WrestleMania this year, but I mean, I said it about Royal Rumble. If they go to a 2 night Rumble, you're not going to have both men's and women's Rumbles on the same night.
No, there's no point to, right?
You're gonna
Yeah.
split those, right? And same thing with if they're gonna do Survivor Series and if they're gonna do multiple War Games matches, you're gonna do them on 2 nights. Now for SummerSlam, um, there's no big marquee event that's tied to SummerSlam, but they could make one. Um, I could eventually see Money in the Bank not being its own pay per view and maybe moving to like a SummerSlam as a marquee of SummerSlam, right? And Triple H, didn't he kind of say that about how Money in the Bank doesn't have to be its own pay per view at some point?
They've
Like,
said that in the past, yeah.
or Elimination Chamber or something like that, right? Like, you could take those big matches that you can't do multiple times or you don't want to do multiple times, and you could make them a marquee of SummerSlam on a 2 night event. Um, so that's where I think they're headed, but we'll see. I don't know. We
Yeah.
will see.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, that would make sense, right? They can consolidate operations then, and then it like might even bring it to a different level of production that they haven't had before with that Money in the Bank event or like the Hell in the Cell or like that type of stuff, right? Like just to get back to that. Um, but yeah, yeah, I forgot about those two dates for the big ones. That's interesting because when does Peacock's pay per view contract run out? I know we talked about this before, but with the
I think
PLEs,
I think next year.
okay. So yeah, yeah, there's a lot going on. So you think we'll get Punk and Drew then?
I think so.
You you think we'll get Punk and Drew in a sanctioned match, or we get Punk and Drew just going at it, like just
I think we get a
backstage?
match. I think we get a match.
I do too. I do too. Yeah, there's a few other questions with that I wanna, or with this that I wanna bring up to you going into the pay per view. But back to Raw. Then we had Chad Gable call out Bo Dallas. He told Adam Pearce this is what he was gonna do. Bo was walking to the ring when the Creed brothers attacked. Um, Kinda sociopathically, Bo Dallas was laughing the whole entire time he was getting attacked. Then the lights went out. Dallas and apologies, Gable and the Creed brothers got out of the ring, and then we basically got the Wyatt Six first pose all together right in the ring. That's the first time they've
Yeah.
been in there. So that was pretty cool. Hopefully there's some good pictures that are gonna be put up on WWE Shop from that, so I can buy it. Cause that'd be good to have. But and then it went straight to commercial after that. Uh, so then they had the IC title, which is Dragunov versus um, Sami Zayn, uh, and Dragunov won via disqualification. So that was pretty good. I thought the one spot in that was pretty iffy, where Sammy got dragged off in the over the back type suplex towards the corner. I don't know if you saw this full match, but he throws him, and it looks like Dragunov lands on the crown of his head, like, and then buckles into the corner. So it looked like, I don't know if their timing was off, or because that's a version of the buckle bomb that Sammy used to do when he was in Ring of Honor. So it's kind of like, did he get caught between a rock and a hard place with that type of thing of like, oh, I
Yeah.
threw him too hard, or I didn't get him up enough, whatever. But hopefully everybody's okay with that. That looks kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, and then from there, WWE's been posting. CM Punk returns on Raw live from Green Bay, Wisconsin, this coming Monday. So the 22nd, correct? That's the date.
Yep.
Yep. So that'll be interesting to see what we get out of there. Um, yeah, I mean, overall, like you said, I didn't know the exact time of what the wrestling was, but I feel like this Raw continued on its hot streak. Like, I don't think I don't know. Like, did you think anything was bad, or like just kind of
No, I really didn't.
like they just been
Yeah,
clicking, right? Like they've just been hitting on all cylinders, and they're great. Like, so yeah, it's definitely wild because I don't notice like the lack thereof in ring content until like you bring it up, or like if a different podcast I um listen to brings it up, or if I got a tear swerve say this is where the real wrestling happens or whatever, then of course obviously. But yeah, it was good. I guess what's your big pain points coming from this being the lead up lead up to SummerSlam? What do you think? What do you think this upcoming Raw gives us going into SummerSlam?
well, if they announced Punk, maybe we see something there.
Yeah,
You
hopefully,
know,
right?
if he was at, the rumor is he was at the Performance Center and it was a part of trying to get cleared. If that happened officially, then yeah, I think we find out what's going on, or at least we get a better idea what's happening for SummerSlam with him.
Yeah. Where do you think we end up with the Bloodline this Monday? Do you think we get anything to further that Cody and Solo stuff, or do they just
I think, yeah, I think you
leave it
just get
be?
your natural. No, I think you get your natural like furthering of that story. There's rumors out there Roman could be coming back soon or at SummerSlam. So I don't know if they do a little foreshadowing or anything, or if they do a little hinting there, but you probably just get something to further that story a tiny bit more. Um, Internet sleuths have already decided that Randy Orton is giving hints for his eventual turn on Cody, so maybe you get a little bit more of that if you believe them that he's already hinting that.
Well, so we've seen it a couple times, right? Like when he helped. I don't know if it was at a PLE or just a regular broadcast show, but when he helped Cody evade Solo when they were standing in the ramp, and like Orton, no, I think this was a PLE. Apologies, my ADHD is going crazy tonight. Um, Orton was standing behind Cody, and then you see him like kind of turn his head, and he's staring at the belt, right? Like he's like like he's making sure everybody sees him stare at that belt. And the same thing happened in the locker room too when they were sitting together. Like he's staring at the belt, which was cool. Like I get it. Like that's what we expected, right? Like we weren't sure when we were gonna get it, but if it happens, um, yeah, I'm all for it. Like we said that Solo's really not been the guy they wanted, right?
Yeah.
Like he's like, but then again, I was thinking about this on the way home. Is this similar to Roman when they kept forcing him down everybody's throat? Because that's technically what they're doing with Solo, right? Like he's the guy now for the
Um,
bloodline.
yeah, I mean maybe, but I don't know if I'd make that comparison because I just don't know if I see that potential in Solo at all.
Oh well, that's
Whereas like with Roman, you knew there was potential there. You just didn't know how he was gonna get it. And the forcing them forcing him down our throats just made everybody have that reaction.
agreed.
But you knew deep down it was there. He just needed something, and it was time away and Paul Heyman, right? And Solo, though, because Solo just had a different character, right? Like Roman was always a character you knew of, and you could see eventually going there. It's just WWE rushed it, and they tried so hard. Solo, this became more natural of like, well, he didn't really split off while the Usos went back and forth with splitting off and getting coming back and splitting off and feuding each other. Solo was always the constant, but he was the enforcer. He didn't speak for the longest time. He didn't speak at all, right? And then it just became the natural, like, well, who's going to be that person? You know, Roman has been beat. He's gone for now. Who's the number one? And it really, at that point, it could only be Solo because there was nobody else, right? It was just when we went into WrestleMania, it was just Paul, Roman, and Solo, right? Oh no, Jimmy, but Jimmy was injured,
Yeah, you're right.
right? Because it was brother versus brother, but Jimmy was, Jimmy was just Jimmy. So, but then Jimmy was beat and gone. Solo was the only one left. And like in theory, you had The Rock, but we knew The Rock wasn't going to stay. He was going to have to leave for at least a little while. So really, it could only be Solo. So I don't know that it's because they're pushing him as much as just like I just don't know if it's the role for him.
Yeah,
It just doesn't seem like the lead guy
yeah.
type guy.
Yeah, he kind of feels like he's filling the spot right until somebody else gets back, or until he's filling the spot until WWE makes the swerve of you thought Solo was going to be the guy, but we have Jacob, and look what Jacob can do, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that Jacob's eventually going to be the guy either. I think Jacob stays as this like crazy enforcer that it's just freaking wild.
yeah.
And I mean, if anything, I think The Rock is going to replace Solo. Um,
Well, he has the phone, right? That like
right.
he was talking to somebody that we said 10 full times. Like, if WWE's trying to do this right, they make the other person on that phone be the Rock, and then it all ties it together. Of for
I think,
Survivor
and I think
Series,
that's what they're doing
yeah.
for sure. I mean, we know it's not the last of the final boss,
So
right?
do
So
you think it's too early to bring Roman back?
no, nope, because you bring Roman and then you can continue to slow play who Roman brings with him, just like they were doing with Solo and Tonga and um, the other guy. I can't think of his name now. Um,
Yeah,
and
to,
then Jacob, right?
yeah, Toyolonga, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, Tonga Loa and Loa Tonga or whatever his name is.
yes,
So and then Jacob and like and there could be more, right? We have those rumors that they signed that one big huge dude. I think it's actually isn't it Haku's son? Um,
and Zilla keeps posting that he's on his way.
there's Zilla. There was rumors they signed. Yeah, Hik Hikuleo.
Yeah,
Um, I remember he wrestled in AEW a couple of times. He's huge.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's a monster. I would love for them to.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
Haku is his uncle.
yeah,
Another one. So his brother is Tamatanga. That's who it
yes.
is. Tamatanga and Tongaloa. So Tamatanga is is this guy's brother. So Haku is his adopted father slash uncle, whatever. Um, so if they really have him and they have Zilla and you know somewhere out there is Jimmy eventually going to be healed again. Um, I still think Jay comes back into the fold eventually. Um, so you can really spread that out, and there can
Oh
just
yeah.
be bloodline civil war for months. Um, there's that one rumor that next WrestleMania could be a triple threat with Rock, Roman, and Cody. So that could be what they're building to potentially. So you have to have a bloodline civil war and bring Cody back into it at some point. You could have a bloodline war games, which would be crazy. Bloodline war games with those guys would be nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Well, I was thinking the bash. I was because I had a few things on the drive home today. I was thinking the bash in Berlin. We get Solo and Jacob versus Roman and Cody as a tag team if he does come back, right? Because they love doing that. They love doing like a four big name tag team, and that's in February. So it gives them time for them to like build to that. Like it gives them time to get through all that stuff. I think it's in February. If I
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of options, and never forget we have Cena coming back into the mix for a year.
yeah, no, like, well, and that's what I was thinking too. I kind of want them to go back, or maybe we get different versions of the original Bloodline. So maybe starting off, we get Roman, the Usos, and Sammy, the OG Bloodline, versus the current Bloodline for a bit, and then something happens to one or two people in the OG Bloodline, and then that's when Roman's like, "Oh, you thought that's all I had," and then he shows up with Zilla and Haku's nephew, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh yeah, we're getting ready for Survivor Series." Like this is gonna be an all-out war, right? Like this is like it's like this is gonna be wild. Yeah, it's crazy, right? There's so many things that you could possibly run with this. Like you could, oh, or but it depends how. It depends how fast you want to like amp this up, right? Like bringing Roman back, you can have him just step in and cost Solo the title right there, right there. Like he just comes out of the crowd, hits Solo with a spear. Cody hits him with the crossroads. Boom, right there. So it's like, or are they slow playing this to like let's get all of our money's worth and then we'll go from there? But then did you see um what was it? Tahina Tonga? She's been at the WWE Performance Center. So like the Tonga
Oh
twins.
yeah,
So now we're gonna have a female bloodline with Naya, and you could put Naya right with the Rock because every time he comes back, that's the first person he goes and connects with, as we saw on the WWE WrestleMania documentary, as told by in the perspective of Dwayne the Rock Johnson. like, yeah, man, this is wild, man. This is, I don't know, what would you do?
I don't know. Like, there's just so much you can do with it. In general, it's like, eventually, I think it's probably easier to say where do you want it to go, but like, eventually, I think I want to see it. I just want to see this bloodline civil war, and I do think it should be Roman and Rock leading the two factions of it. How they shape that out, I don't really care. You know, as far as who goes where. Um, and they
Yeah,
could do that for a while, and then after the war is settled, they could bring them together in some, whatever pieces are left could band together and go back to, and just say, like, listen, family fights. Now we're done fighting. Now we have a new goal, and they turn their attention to the WWE.
bro,
Whoever.
can you imagine both bloodlines plus the female bloodline? And they like get through it, and like Solo gets smacked around so bad he has to step away from a bit, so Roman makes the other ones like bend the Game of Thrones style, and then all of a sudden they're like, "We want every belt now," and they just start going on. Just, oh my god, they would run through the WWE.
Right.
They would run through the WWE for every belt. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like it is. It's something. I'm excited to see if they actually bring this together with the Tonga twins for like the female bloodline, because that has a lot of potential. But at the same time, has wrestling not felt like the NFL free agency recently?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, to a degree. That's a good
Like,
point.
you had AEW go and get Osprey and Mercedes at the beginning of the year, and then WWE responded with, "Here's Jordan Grace, here's Joe Hendry, here's Jacob Fatu, here's the Guerrillas of Warfare." Like it's like, and that's not even talking about which I want to talk to her about as well. Shh. Oh, let me pull this up real quick. Da, da, da. Stephanie Beckwer, which there's been a lot of, you know, things spewed about her this past week. Um, Based on what happened with her MLW contract, her AEW wanted her. Um, she originally supposedly, I looked into, so the first time I saw her was when she was on the card for New Japan with Sasha and it's the card that Sasha hurt her foot on. Who did Sasha, or sorry, who did Mercedes wrestle? Um
Where she hurt her foot, it was Willow, wasn't it?
yes, yeah.
Originally,
Yeah,
back in New
Willow.
Japan.
Yes, thank you for that, Daniel. Perfect. Look at you, you indie dirt sheet star. Um, but basically, so I was doing a little background, and it looked like Stephanie had a tryout in 2018 with WWE. Did not get hired, which is probably good, right? Because that was the Vince era, the COVID era. So who knows what would have turned into her contract there. Um, she basically wrestled AEW's biggest star, you would say, with the Forbidden Door. I mean, women wise, who else could she have wrestled at AEW that could have got her to stay? Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you brought her in to go against your best of the best right there. So there was, I don't know. So to me, like, we don't know all the contract talks, right? Like, because we're not a fly in that room. I think the one thing a lot of people forget when they've been trying to bash her this week is this is the world of independent contractors, right? So when it comes down to it, she's gonna have to do what's best for her. And if she felt that the WWE show was best and not aligning with those dates because WWE really wanted to debut her in Mexico, then so be it. Like that's what happened, and she'll have to l- live with the consequences of it. But like spreading all these rumors and stuff about you know Mercedes and her, or she just walked out, and then she didn't walk out. She let them know. MLW came out and said Stephanie has let us know that she will not be a part of these upcoming dates. We apologize to her fans, and we'll try and fix this issue. Like so, it's just stupid that it even went there. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, they're so stacked. Like just to tie it all together, just like the Bloodline stacked on the main roster, they're stacked on NXT. Like, has there ever been a greater? Now we've grew up for WWE for a while, so I think we can have this conversation to tie it all together. Looking at what WWE currently has now, Daniel, and you can include OVW in the past, but do you think there has been a greater time period within wrestling with the amount of talent that they've just been able to absorb and make it work in some form of the other or the other?
I mean, uh, it's such the problem is for me it's too subjective because
It's
I don't
fair.
know. There's been rosters, and I mean, there was really not as much competition before either. So that, like, at least not the kind of competition that in theory there is today. And the access to the product is so much easier for all products. But you think about even like the back and forth with WCW of stealing people back and forth, but it's tough because it's hard for me to say you could beat a roster at times that had Austin, The Rock, Cena, Foley, Undertaker, um, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, you know, and then you can break that down into like DX in general,
Yeah,
because
that's a good point.
Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, and Billy Gunn played a very important role, even if they weren't Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels and Triple H, right? And X Pac, right? Um, and Razor Ramon, right? Like Scott Hall is Razor, and then or you go even a little bit further back and you've got Hogan and Macho Man and DiBiase and Dusty and for a little while Rick Flair and Steamboat and and you just like and Warrior, right? Like so to me it's hard for that, and also like sentimentally still like the Attitude Era is just gonna live on for me as like their greatest roster of all time.
Yeah.
Jericho too. I didn't even mention Jericho in the site. Mysterio, Guerrero, right? Like they had some stacked rosters back then for sure, and they do now too. Like it's tough to answer. I think for me, the nostalgia part still would put those rosters ahead for me, but this is right up there with them. I
Yeah.
just probably, if I'm ranking those like two sets of rosters I kind of mentioned, I'm probably putting Attitude Era roster first, and then like your classic era with Hogan and Warrior and Macho Man and all them, and then the characters too, like Big Boss Man. I was a huge Big Boss Man fan, right? Um, the Mountie, right? Like it was just fun. The
Right.
Mountie and Bret Hart had a great rivalry for the longest time, right? Jerry Lawler and Bret Hart, right?
Hmm.
Like, um, so I think I'd put that second, and then this roster third if I was doing this, like my top three. But I think for sure two and three are interchangeable for most people.
Yeah, I feel. Yeah, that's a good point that you made. Just because it was a lot different back then. Um,
it's different now too because there's excitement about a guy like Jacob Fatu coming because 25 years ago nobody would know who he was wrestling on the indies. Today, 90% of wrestling fans knew exactly who he was. And then when he showed up, it was that much bigger of a deal
Correct.
because he was just this like indie lore that people knew, but he was never on the main stage like that.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to that that makes it even more appealing because we already know a lot of these people coming in, right? Where
Yeah, you know
when
some point of their story, right? Yeah. You know
right.
some
And when
background
you
or something.
right, and when you think of like guys like Triple H and Austin, The Undertaker, right? They came in as these new characters that nobody really knew. Nobody knew that Paul Levesque, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, I mean, was terrorizing in WCW, right? Like nobody really knew that. Nobody knew that Undertaker had been wrestling for a while in ECW and WCW and independent promotions as Mean Mark Calloway, right? Or whatever else he had been wrestling as. But but if that was today, everybody would know, oh, this guy debuting as the Undertaker is Mean Mark, who was kicking ass in some independent promotion for the last 2 years, you know? So that's probably part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, like we said earlier, like it feels like it's free agency for WWE now, and they're the Yankees, and they just go and buy whoever they want off whatever roster they want, and it's allowed.
Another difference might be too is that this era versus the class, what I'll just call the classic era of like Hogan and Macho Man and all them, you can argue that today's roster is much more stacked because that roster had to have enhancement talent or jobbers, right? Today's rosters doesn't have. There's no real enhancement talent. There are some guys that don't win a lot, maybe, but you know, a lot of them eventually end up getting some kind of run and stuff like that too. But there's no like random guy from like what did they do all the time in the 80s and early 90s, right? It was like Hogan, whoever your big stars would come out and squash some nobody who nobody knew, or the Brooklyn Brawler was always losing, right? There was that one or two characters who always took a loss. You don't have that really today, right? You have like guys that end up taking losses, but they're not there just to put other guys over and enhance their wins. They're going to get stories and runs eventually. I mean, to a degree, Chad Gable has kind of been that guy for a long time. An incredible worker that could help get anyone over and only had a couple of runs a little bit here and there and now he's getting a huge one after all these years, you know? But so you could argue this roster is definitely more stacked because they really don't bring in nobodies to just enhance matches anymore. They just make it work with what they have.
Yeah. I mean, that's a credit, right, to the talent that they
Yes.
have now. Like,
Yes. Oh, 100%. And that's what I mean. That's how you could argue this roster is better and deeper and stacked more than those other rosters. Um
yeah, I'm wondering if I agree with all the points that you brought up, and I was trying to think about it and rethink of where I was going with it. But I wonder if then if WWE is setting the standard of like what um adequate professional wrestling companies will have to do now, right? Like in m- m- like so with WWE, three shows: Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, right?
mhm.
You could take any of those rosters and compare it to any other roster of a professional wrestling company that's out there, and I think you give WWE the slight edge, right? Like it's not just one giant stockpile. They've only brought people in where they see that there's an opening for it to make sense. They're not just going to try and buy a big name just so they can say they have this big professional wrestler on the payroll, right? Like they're spreading it out very, very evenly. And I think that's one of the problems that AEW runs into, right? Besides the attendance issues in the arenas from the pictures I was sending to you. It feels like they stockpiled with no plan, but they stockpiled just to stockpile, right? Like, besides, I don't know, like
Well, and
Osprey.
they
Besides,
still use a lot of enhancement talent too.
they do
What I was
vocal,
just
and
saying,
that's true.
they're
They do,
always bringing in local people to get squashed.
they do. You are correct. That's a good point to bring up too. Yeah, that is. Uh, yeah, it's something, man. It is something. I don't know. It's crazy because like I'm enjoying it, and like ever since we started talking wrestling, like I watch a lot of different varieties of wrestling when I can, and like just like fantasy sports, you kind of get into the urge of starting a book and be like, hey, what if blah 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 ever got the chance to wrestle blah blah blah, and it's kind of like, oh, now it's happening for real. This is insane. Like, so that's cool. Like for instance, and when I brought up the Moose comment earlier. I would love to see him go with anybody on the NXT roster. Just let him go. Give him a ring and a green light and say, all up to you, bud. Like, just go. But yeah, I mean, so real quick then, real quick, do you want to run through the SummerSlam card of what we think it's going to be and predictions then?
Yep,
Okay.
let's do it.
All right. All right, Daniel. Hang on. Hang on. Let me pull this up. I had to fix the desk. I had to fix my new laboratory. Getting so used to the controls. Uh, my new battle station, as they call it. All right. So the three that, as this article was published yesterday at 12:23 p.m., there was three that we for sure knew of, I believe. But Cody should have been on this, so I just said that. But Damien versus Gunther for the title. What's your thoughts?
I think it's gonna be Damien.
I think so too. I think so too.
I
Cause
think they're gonna keep that going for now.
do you think they keep that going for now so that Gunther can cash in at the Bash in Berlin?
I didn't think about that, but possibly. Yeah,
Um, Bailey versus Naya for the title.
Bailey.
See this, I feel like Naya's just gonna. I think Naya's just gonna obliterate Bailey. It just has that weird feeling of where like you have Bailey playing the dark horse in this, right? And then all of a sudden, like Naya gets out there, she gets in a run, and then all of a sudden she's just hammering Bailey. And yeah, all right, well, that's one we disagree on. Let me write that down. Let me write that down, Daniel. So Daniel Frederick Savage wants Bailey.
People are really gonna think my middle name's Frederick now.
Hey, that's the nicest thing I've placed there. So, I mean,
That is true.
like, Liv versus Rhea.
I think it's going to be live, but there's going to be an asterisk on it on how it happens. My assumption is they will do something with Dominic, and it will somehow screw it up for Rhea, and Liv will retain.
Yeah, I was thinking they were gonna do something. Uh,
They just stretch this out a little bit longer
oh, they're
for
gonna,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
That they're like that they're gonna. Because I think so. I think this is gonna be the starting thing of what splits Judgment Day for good. Oh,
Yeah.
I've right. Like, I forgot to ask real quick. Going back to the Damien versus Gunther. Um, do you think Finn gets involved? Because it's been bugging me. They haven't tied this together yet. When Damien said prior to what was it the last PLE that he doesn't need anybody in the Judgment Day, and they were all kind of shocked. And Finn seems to be
Um,
that guy in the Judgment Day that like keeps notice of all those things.
um, yeah, I could potentially see that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Or the other thing I was thinking about, which man, I spend too much time thinking about professional wrestling when I'm supposed to be working. But remember when Finn took Liv's hotel card?
Yeah.
Do you think Finn is the interference that helps Liv over Rhea? And then Dom gets involved because Dom tries to come out and stop Finn.
Oh, that's a good one. I think that's possible. It's not what my original thought was, though, so I'll stick with my original. That I think it'll just be Dominic, but that is a good alternative.
Yeah, I still think Liv retains either way. I like you said they are gonna get Rhea back to where she's white hot, right? Like so. Cody versus Solo. We're going Cody, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You think uh you think Orton and KO gets involved to like keep away the bloodline, or you think this is just flat out Cody over Solo and that's it?
I think it's flat out, but there will be. I mean, this isn't as far as we know. There's no kind of like no DQ or anything, so this could be just a DQ finish with the bloodline. I don't know about Randy and Kevin. I guess that's possible because it could set up a future match. Another, well, they just did that at Money in the Bank
Yeah.
though, so maybe not. I mean, if Roman's coming back, if that's true, then no. I think Roman gets involved. Um, so I think it could just be a DQ finish.
Do you know how WWE has this weird fascination for just letting a wrestler's music hit and that's the distraction?
Yeah, which really screwed him last time.
Right. But I'm wondering if that's what's gonna be Roman. Like it just hits. Or it's Heyman. Or like Heyman starts to walk down the ramp and then that's the distraction. And then they tie it to Roman coming back. But yeah, I think Cody takes this anyways. Logan Paul over LA Knight.
Oh, is that a match? That is that actually a
Supposedly.
match? Because that's not on what I have. That's why I'm
Oh, what do you have? So this is on with
just
CBS
the
Sports.
four, just the four you just said. I didn't have the other one.
So I think these are like what they're trying to say are gonna happen for like prediction matches.
Oh, okay. Um, I could see LA Knight taking this one. It could be time for Logan to be done with this run.
Yeah, I well, and don't forget, like it came out a few months ago that when he drops the title, he's gonna be gone for a while because
Well,
he has
that could
other
be.
things lined up. To be
Yeah, that
honest,
could be then.
this might make me sound like a shitty wrestling fan. I have no interest in this.
That doesn't surprise me. You don't like Logan,
No, but it's not even that. I just think they dropped the ball with LA Knight, and I think that's what it is. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. I said Logan's great in the ring, like, and he could probably tell a great story with LA Knight. I just think there's so much going on that LA Knight kind of gets lost in the shuffle, right? Like, but I think LA Knight takes it too, and I think Paul goes on a well-deserved vacation. And then hopefully we get Punk versus Drew. Who you got, Daniel? Danny
oh, it's a
boy.
Punk, 100,000%. It's gonna be Punk.
Yeah. So what do
It's
you
got
think?
to be Punk.
So we're at 1, 2, 3. So that's 6 right there.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 hours again.
3.5. Yeah, 3.5, 4.
What do you think the order is of the card?
Um,
How? Here, let me phrase it this way: if Hunter gives you the card and says, "Have at it, Danny boy," what would you do? I have mine already. Like I said, I spend too much time during work thinking about wrestling, so I already went through this 1,000 times in my brain. But I'm intrigued to see what you say because you're usually right when it comes to the predicting the order.
well, I mean, they've had a very they've had a big proclivity to starting with a big match. So, I could see it being Liv and Rhea or Damien and Gunther. Um, I'm gonna go Liv Rhea to start.
Okay. I,
So from there, Liv Rhea probably go into Logan and LA Knight. Then Bailey, Nia Jax, Damian, Gunther, Punk, Drew, Cody, Solo. Now, Punk Drew is a tough one because that's going to be a big anticipated match. So maybe you flip Punk Drew and Bailey Nyla as a little bit of a let up ahead of Cody and Solo as the main event, but I I think that's tough because Punk and Drew is probably going to overshadow Priest and Gunther, which should be a bigger match, but I just don't think it's got a lot of anticipation to it. So no, you know what? Bailey Nyla, what I originally said, Bailey Nyla, Damian Gunther, and then Cody Drew. Since there's nothing on the line other than just their pride, and Cody and Solo will just have to be on their A game because that's probably there's going to be a lot to that. Um,
this is going to be the toughest defense of Cody's career, I think.
yeah,
And not just because of like how big or hard that solo hits. Like he's like it's gonna take a lot for him to tell a story with this, right? Like so I had so the one thing we were pretty much the same. The one thing that I had first, I had Bailey versus Nia first. Logan versus LA, Liv versus Rhea, Damien Gunther, Punk Drew, Cody Solo. That's the only thing. So I had Bailey and Nia switch with your Liv and Rhea.
yeah. I don't.
Because the last time, I think when Bailey was wrestling for the title, she was up first.
Yeah, that's true.
So But yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Like, do you see them adding anything else to this?
I don't think so.
I think the only thing that we might get a Wyatt six appearance or a possible Bull Dallas versus Gable type thing, which I'm okay with.
Yeah,
I'm I'm completely okay with that because it's not
yeah,
really a letdown, right? It kind of like gives the crowd in the arena something else to like pay attention to, right? Like it's not just promo,
right.
match, promo, match, promo. It's like, oh, we got this special event that's occurring before us. Then we got to be on our game, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know. It should be good. You think it's gonna be good?
I do think it's going to be good. I think it's going, there's enough there. The matches should be good. There's a lot of storyline going here. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be good for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it has to be.
yeah.
It's a fucking SummerSlam.
Well, and it has to be clean, right? Like they can't have botches like they had.
No.
Like it has to be clean. So it'll be interesting because I kind of feel bad for Damien. It's uh, like he's great in the ring. He's been bringing it with this title, but you don't look at him and like think of like, oh, that guy's legacy is he's gonna be remembered for how clean he was on his title defenses, right? Because every big
Right.
Damien match, he's had an issue. The kick out, and then when his foot got caught in the rope, when he tried to go over the rope, like
Yeah.
so, it's gonna be interesting. Um, yeah, man, it's gonna be something. So, yeah, I mean that's all I had to talk about tonight. Dan, was there anything else you want to touch on? You're usually good tying up the loose points I may have missed or whatnot.
Um, I mean, nothing in particular. We didn't really talk anything about AEW.
Oh,
They
I did
go
have
ahead.
that. No, I did have that. See, look at you.
Always reminding you.
You are the backbone of this show, sir. I don't want you know. It, many times as I tell you, you don't bring anything to this company. You're the backbone of this show. Um, the one thing I wanted to that because we were able to briefly speak about this today prior to the pod. AEW's attendance issues with their big cards, or not big cards, but for their matches in general. What's your thoughts? Because that picture did not look great with their two biggest stars in the company, and that there's no one there.
So there's a couple of problems right there that are going on, and it's I think those problems are highlighted and exacerbated by the fact that they've made some stupid decisions, but there's a little bit of a potential reasoning for that. Um, they're they're booking venues that are too large for their show currently for their attendance. And Eric Bischoff has always talked about this on his podcast, that part of the problem with that is shows are booked, usually venues are booked at least a year in advance, sometimes longer. occasionally shorter, but usually you're planning out your shows almost a year in advance to A, guarantee you can get your locations, B, make your plans for travel and production and all that, and have that all done and said so you don't have to worry about it 1 month out. And the way he's always talked about this has been it can be a bad in two ways. And for him, in the beginning, it was bad when WCW got so hot because they got hot so quickly and then they had a year's worth of crappy venues and they couldn't change to bigger venues. And some people always said, well, your ticket sales really didn't grow even though your ratings were through the roof. And he said, yeah, because I booked a 5,000 seat venue 12 months prior to the NWO starting. Like, I didn't know it was going to go crazy like that. He goes, you can't just turn around and get a 20,000 seat venue
Right.
in 3 months. He goes, there's concerts, there's sports, there's this, there's that, you know, and it's not cheap, so like his point being that that also can help hurt you when you're doing really well and then you have a drop off because now your drop off is you have a 15,000 seat venue and you're only selling 4,000 tickets because that's all you pretty much think you're going to sell. So that's what AEW's been a victim of potentially. And the real problem then becomes too many people can take pictures and show you that basically 3/4 of an arena is empty.
Yeah, it's not a
You
great
know,
look right now, right? And it sucks because they had an Iron Man match this past week for Dynamite 250, right? With Osprey and MJF.
Osprey and NJF went 59 minutes and 58 seconds
Nice.
for a title.
Yes.
So, and they have had better attendance for sure, and that's part of their problem. They have sporadic decent attendance at times. Like they have occasionally like shows that do really well. But that's not their case right now. But I don't think they can change their venues that easily. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing currently. Um, as far as like how they're booking out a year from now for venues or 7, 8 months from now. But, I just pulled it up like July 3rd, they had a show that they only had a setup for 3,200 tickets and they sold 20 or they distributed 2,788. So, but they were in the Wintrust Arena and Wintrust Arena can do 10,000 for a basketball arrangement. So it would be more than 10,000 most likely for a wrestling one if you could fill it. So they only sold under 3,000 tickets in a place that easily could sit 10,000 and probably would sit closer to 12 to 13,000, I bet, in a wrestling format. That's a real problem for sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, I I don't know if I mean my guess would be is they can't be making money on that if they're only selling 3,000 tickets. And I don't know what these arenas cost, but we always hear about it with WWE how like they lose money at MSG no matter what. They sell out and they still lose money. Well, I can't imagine these venues that are set for 10,000 people and you only get three that you're covering your cost, but you know, um, yeah. So I don't know what they do. The MJF. I didn't watch all of Dynamite. I did watch a good portion of that match. It was a good match, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, how do I'm trying to put this out there to not get in trouble with what I gotta say. Try and turn a
Well,
new
with the
leaf, Dan.
way we started this, yeah, right. With the way we started this, who cares? Because if you didn't get taken down for that, then you're definitely gonna get taken out for this.
Dan, it's not like I have AEW in the crosshairs. Like, it's fine. Um,
They were in a bullseye.
sorry,
That's
my
what
bad.
it was, in a
My
bullseye.
bad. So I went back and watched this match. Thank you, YouTube TV on demand, specifically just for this match. One, because I'll give it to him. It is wrestling history. 250 episodes of Dynamite is a stepping stone. Like, that's huge. Like, that is huge for a company outside of WWE. So kudos to that, because that only means that more wrestlers are getting employed, getting paid, and being able to do what they love, which is awesome. This match felt like they were trying to reach a 5-star rating.
Maybe.
For it to come down to end because of a punch in the face with the ring, why couldn't you do that 37 minutes ago? Would you have to wear him down to punch him in the face with the ring? Like, but then again, when's the last time we had an hour match?
It would have been whatever Iron Man match Daniel Bryan wrestled the last time. He's wrestled a couple.
With AEW, or you mean in WWE?
AEW. Yeah. I can't think of one where we've gotten an Iron Man match, or well, so I don't even know that they actually like said it was going to be an Iron Man match. They just put a 60-minute time limit on it.
So,
Um,
interesting. Was the Hangman Page one the hour? Yes,
um,
yes. His 1 hour long title match against former AEW World
he
Champion
did.
Hangman Page.
He's done a couple with AEW. Didn't he do one with Kenny too?
So the most recent one I can find was the one he did back in 2022. But I could be
Well, he
wrong.
went. Oh, actually, he went over an hour with MJF too. But when was that?
Oh, that was yeah,
I don't have a date on it, but I saw it here.
that's
This
true.
was from April of 2023. This article. He recently
Yeah,
had.
that was
He
an
went
hour and
over an hour because they went into overtime. I think they did the Bret Hart
yep.
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, so that was 2023. So okay, so it's been over a year. I'm all I'm all for the 1 hour matches. It's good to see MJF do this. Um, I definitely thought there were some spots in this match that the camera work was very good. Like when MJF was standing on the outside talking crap and he was pointing to his brain, and then all of a sudden Osprey comes and gives him like a forearm like through the ropes to the back of the head. That's a great shot, right? Because that's the perfect action shot. Like, um, yeah, I think I don't know. Like seeing Osprey do the Suzuki for the first time in a while. Did you catch that? Where he bounced off the ropes and did the back handspring over the rope.
No, I didn't catch that.
Um, that was kind of crazy because I know he hasn't done that in a while. So to see him bring that back out for this, that's kind of. Uh, it definitely felt like they like kept doing things to like get the crowd into it, like different finishers by different wrestlers or different WWE finishers or different things. But I don't know. Uh, I think for an hour match, you kind of have to, right? Like, you kind of have to tell it that way. But I think there's a way to do it so it's, I don't know, not so obvious that you're shooting for 5 stars, but hopefully they got it if that's what they were shooting for. More power to them. Um, and seeing MJF come off the table, come off the turnbuckle outside the ring through a table is kind of crazy because I didn't think that was part of his game, but it is. Um, and then MJF back to doing the same stuff of flicking off a kid and throwing water at a security guard. So,
Security guard, not a kid.
oh, he drinking water with his pinky up while he's sitting on top of like the wall, and then when the kid like punched him when Osprey had him on the railing and grabbed him again, MJF just gave the kid a finger. Um, so and not the one, not the good finger. Anyways, dad joke. Yeah. All right. Good talk. Um, but yeah, and I guess the other big thing, correct me if I'm wrong, your girl's back. Your girl is back.
Britt Baker, she's been back.
In her head, she has been. But yeah.
You don't pay. I mean, she showed up at
Yeah.
Dynasty or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
and I show up at work. It doesn't mean I'm 100% there, Dan. Like,
I I don't know why you're saying that. I mean, you could say that about CM Punk too. What is your point?
first of
She
all,
is
watch
still
your mouth
back.
about Phil Brooks, okay? Watch your mouth.
I'm,
No,
I'm just
but
saying it's the same thing.
involvement.
Like,
Her getting into. See, you always have to take this podcast to a point where we start arguing, and then we got to go to counseling, and then we just got to figure out how to
because
handle each other's feelings.
okay, we're not going to counseling, but um,
Whoa, somebody's afraid of therapy. Huh, weird. Uh, I'm
I'm
talking
just
about
saying that
the
she is.
interaction of like when she shoved Mercedes. Like that's big for her. That she's getting that spotlight that she complained about for 3.5 years on Twitter. That nobody knows who I am. I just want to be involved. Funny how I don't get to speak anymore on Dynamite. Do you think Britt versus Mercedes would be good?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Did you think it's unreasonable to believe that it takes 5 security guards to hold back Britt Baker?
No, but that's just wrestling.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that's just wrestling.
Dan, I'm just asking. You're getting a little defensive now that I'm
No,
hitting it close to home. Wow.
no, because you're
Wow.
okay, okay. Like, also, is it? I mean, is it believable that security guards can stop Brock Lesnar?
Depends. Was it when LA Knight was a
Or
security guard?
or
Was
or
it
better yet,
was it when LA Knight
no,
was a
hold
security
on.
guard?
Or is it more believable that 20 guys can pile around them in the corner of the ring and somehow a guy like Seth Rollins can shove all 20 guys back on their ass?
He does CrossFit. Dan. I don't know if you know this. He owns a CrossFit gym. Okay. Um. So I need you to to take that bass out of your voice. Okay. Okay, Dan.
I I mean, it doesn't matter what I say here because you're going to.
No, I thought it was I no, I'm happy they got 250 shows. I it's a concern of mine that I brought up to you before is like these pictures are not doing them any justice, right? On Twitter. Like I don't like it's just I don't know, like, it's just tough. It's very tough for what they're trying to do. Like, so you can't cancel these shows, right? So then, do you have a separate team in the background working to rebook all of these different arenas
I
for
mean,
the
I
for 2 years out? For 2 years out, it
well,
would have to be right.
yeah, I mean, the hope is that they've realized that their attendance is waning, so they start booking some smaller venues until it gets popular again. And they can still have big venues for their big shows. I mean, but they just have to make that realization.
Well, how often have we watched NXT and said, "Man, this small venue makes it look like this show's going crazy," right? Like they probably need a good 6 months to a year of that with the talent that they have to just amplify the whole surroundings. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting. But like I said, I was trying to say this without getting in trouble, but Dan always has to pick a fight. Congratulations to AEW on Dynamite 250.
I didn't pick a fight. You're the one who raised your voice when I mentioned CM Punk.
Well,
Who's who's the sensitive one now?
Dan, as like when I walk, I talk with a purpose. Okay, so
You watch your mouth when you're talking about Phil Brooks. I didn't say anything like that with Britt Baker.
all right, Dan. Dan, if you were wondering, they did play real American.
Oh, I know. He also ripped his shirt off. Well, not down to the
And
skin, but
I think I know how I want to end this podcast if there's nothing else that you got left to say.
okay.
Quote of the night. Ready for this?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Let Trump mania run wild, brother.
Oh, I did hear that. He called them the Trumpites or Trumpomaniacs or something. Yeah.
I mean, we should be happy he didn't let a certain profanity word come out of his mouth again, right? He he has a history of when there's a camera around saying that word frequently. But then again, he probably would have no issue saying that where he is tonight. They kind of all look like me and you, buddy. So yeah, this isn't. Anyways, well, all right. That's all I had, Dan. Let's hope wrestling continues to be the bright light that everybody needs to get through all this crap because it seems to be weighing a lot of people down, and hopefully wrestling can be everybody's outlet. Shout out to Aaron Rift from DoDQ. Appreciate you following us. Um, like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back next week. Uh, we'll probably have to do a show. Oh wait, so we will probably have to do the show Wednesday night to avoid. No, we could do the show the Thursday night just to avoid the Botch Wrestling podcast going on the road for a week.
Yeah. We'll probably miss the 8th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, and I'm trying to set up the iPad Pro to maybe we can record just our discussions during the pay per view while we're away on the road for the week to add to the channel as well when we get back. So, until then, like, comment, subscribe. Um, it's okay to feel overwhelmed by everything going on right now. Just enjoy wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling. And we'll be back next week. Adios, people.